and the silence spread with almost tangible density. I remained motionless for a moment, allowing my perceptions to adjust to that charged environment. It felt like stepping into a field of complex emotional energy. Some were fascinated, others suspicious, others afraid, and a small group radiated resistance, not toward me, but toward the fact that something incomprehensible had entered the universal equation. My expanded mind took it all in. That was when I understood something crucial. I did not need to convince anyone. I did not need to justify myself. I did not need to defend myself. I only needed to exist before them, because my existence alone was proof that the universe had changed, and denying that was no longer possible. I stood there, still, sensing every nuance of that encounter. And within the deeper layers of perception, something caught my attention: the hive. Not active, not communicative, not invasive, just present. Not as surveillance, but as witness. It was as if the hive observed, from afar, humanity's behavior in the face of the unknown. Not to judge, to learn. Its vibrations were soft, almost imperceptible, but real. It was as though some distant part of it leaned closer to perceive how humanity would react to the first post-rebirth contact. And in that moment, I understood that balance would not depend solely on them. It would depend on us. The hive had evolved. Now it was the galaxy's turn to evolve. I was a bridge in this process, but bridges do not push. Bridges support. For the first time, I realized that my path from that point forward would be solitary. Not because of rejection, but because no species would fully understand what I had become. I would walk between worlds, translating, balancing, interpreting forces that had never interacted before. I accepted that truth with serenity. The hive had changed me, but not to dominate it, to balance it. And while everyone observed me in silence, scholars, commanders, politicians, scientists, I realized the entire galaxy was at that very moment taking a deep breath for the first time since the awakening of the Vhaltar. Creative chaos had been restored, absolute order had been broken, and a new cycle had begun. I was the living memory of that cycle, and also its guardian. The journey was far from over. The true story was only beginning. That reception hall became, for an instant, the emotional center of gravity of humanity. Not because it was imposing or technological, though it was, but because gathered there were eyes searching to understand the incomprehensible. Every face carried a partial truth, a desire for control, a need for clarity. I could feel the tension of entire worlds condensed in that stagnant air. Yet, in that moment, I realized the true weight of the galaxy was not on me. It was on them, on every being still trying to find their place in a story that had grown too vast for the limits of organic comprehension. As I stood motionless before them, I felt something vibrate inside my mind. Not the hive, but its essence, that sensory particle that awakened when I crossed the core. It was as if a thin layer of perception overlaid my vision, revealing invisible details. I could see microscopic tensions in hand movements, fragile oscillations in facial muscles, restrained breaths, postures too rigid to be natural. It was not telepathy, not mind reading. It was pure, almost painful understanding of the organic condition. The fear did not come from the hive. It came from the unknown. And in that instant, I realized my function was not to explain anything. It was to exist before fear without succumbing to it. The entire station seemed to breathe out of rhythm, as though the distant presence of the hive was an echo in the minds of the observers. But I had already learned that the hive did not interfere. What confused them was not the hive, it was me. When I took the first step forward, the entire station seemed to freeze. Not because they feared an attack, but because they awaited meaning. And in a way, that step carried meaning. I did not advance as merely human, nor as hybrid, but as symbol, even though I did not seek to be one. The environment adjusted to every movement. Lights shifted intensity milliseconds before I entered their reach. Sensors recalibrated their emissions to avoid overload. Metal structures vibrated at a faint frequency. It was as if the entire station were trying to learn how to accommodate me, just as the hive learned to incorporate asymmetry. As I walked, I perceived emotional clouds floating around the people nearby. Some dense, others light, others shapeless. Each responded to my presence in a unique way. There was guilt, hope, fear, curiosity, denial. It was a complex landscape, as rich as any star map. The emotional depth I perceived did not make me superior, only aware. And awareness brought responsibility. I was guided through a panoramic corridor that revealed, beyond the transparent wall, the vast blackness of the cosmos. The stars hovered in the distance like vigilant observers, and farther out, almost invisible, I sensed the dormant presence of a fragment of the hive, perhaps a remote extension, perhaps only my perception of their existence. It was not surveillance, it was resonance. The final room was circular, wide, designed to host intersector debates. I knew I would be evaluated there, not physically, but philosophically. That dome was where destinies were discussed, sometimes calmly, sometimes desperately. This time would be no different. Upon entering, I felt a gentle shift in my own perceptual field. The metallic structure of the room reflected light in fragmented ways, creating subtle illusions of movement, as though the environment had been designed to prevent anyone from feeling fully in control. A wise choice. Figures were seated around the central table: commanders, scholars, diplomatic representatives, strategists. All of them watched me as if searching for signs that could give meaning to the unknown. They expected me to speak, but I had already decided I wouldn't. My role was not to convince anyone through words, but to allow reality itself to speak. The room remained in absolute silence for long minutes, until I realized that more than answers, they were trying to understand who I had become, not physically, but existentially. And when they understood that I would not offer formal explanations, they began to grasp that there was no simple explanation. I could see frustration rising in some, distrust manifesting in others, and, curiously, acceptance growing in the wisest minds. Those who understood the vastness of the cosmos knew that certain truths could not be captured in reports. They knew transformative experiences did not fit into protocols. They knew that before forces like the Vhaltar, the only sensible posture was humility. For the first time since the rebirth of the hive, I realized I had found a point of stability. I did not need to justify my existence. I did not need to translate the core. I did not need to calm fears or ignite hopes. My presence alone was the answer. When the meeting ended, not through any verbal decision, but because everyone understood nothing more could be added, I left the room and walked again through the panoramic corridor. The view struck me more strongly this time. It was as if the universe had gained additional depth. The stars appeared more alive, the void fuller, the distances denser. I had returned to the organic world, but carried within me a fragment of what existed beyond it. And that coexistence was not conflict, it was complement. The station drifted away in a slow maneuver, and I realized that returning to Earth, or to whatever remained of my former home, would be inevitable. Not because I desired it, but because the world needed to understand what it meant to live in a galaxy in balance. And being a bridge meant going wherever the crossing was needed. When I finally boarded the smaller vessel that would take me back to civilized space, I noticed something new. My perceptions were beginning to stabilize. The extreme sensitivity I had felt after leaving the core was now becoming clearer, more defined. It was no longer flooding, it was reading. I could understand emotions without being consumed by them. I could feel the hive's vibrations without losing my human center. I could perceive currents of decision without confusing myself with them. It was integration without fusion, balance without erasure, expanded humanity, not replaced humanity. The journey to Earth, or more precisely, to the large orbital station serving as the administrative center, was long but silent. During the passage, I realized that every hour took me farther from the Helena Arcturus who once existed. There was no mourning for her, only transition. When I finally saw the blue planet suspended beneath orbital light, I felt an unexpected emotion, an ancient vibration, buried yet still alive. It was nostalgia, yes, but also something deeper. It was the awareness that this physical place had created the person I once was, but could no longer contain who I had become. The planet was no longer my home, but it was still part of me. The vessel descended through the upper orbit, passing luminous fields, and then approached the central station. As I disembarked, I felt a wave of thoughts directed at me. Not conscious thoughts, but instinctive reactions. Surprise, fear, fascination, denial. The pattern was always the same. Humanity trying to understand what it did not understand. As I walked through the station's main corridor, I sensed something that moved me deeply. For the first time since the core, I felt my humanity without distortion. Not as residue, not as noise, but as essence. I was not just the bridge. I was the living reminder of everything an organic mind could become when exposed to the infinite without breaking. I walked into the station's great central hull, a monumental space designed for historic speeches, diplomatic events, and official records. It was empty at that moment. And for the first time since everything began, that emptiness felt welcoming. I understood then that my journey did not end there. It did not end with reports, nor with councils, nor with explanations. My journey ended and began with movement. I walked to the wide panoramic window that revealed Earth in all its vast blue, and I let the silent light pass across my face. The hive had been reborn. The galaxy had changed. The species would need to learn, and I, eternally between worlds, would continue forward. I would guard the balance, translate the ineffable, keep the resonance alive. And then I understood the final secret the hive had left within me. No world is silent. No species is alone. No era lasts forever. And no balance exists by accident. The resonance had begun, and I was its first guardian.